Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India NewsHour, India's voice to the world. I'm Amritpal Singh. Let me begin by wishing you a very happy Independence Day, though the day comes to an end. Coming up in the next 1 hour, Prime Minister Narendra Modi hoists the tricolour from Delhi's Red Fort to mark India's 79th Independence Day. Stresses on self-reliance for a developed India by 2047. Prime Minister announces Sudarshan Chakra mission and India's indigenous defence shield. Also unveils youth employment scheme worth 100 billion rupees. Global leaders wish India on its Independence Day. The United States, France, Nepal, Maldives affirm friendly ties. Russian President Vladimir Putin hails India's developmental strides and well-deserved authority in global affairs. Indian diaspora across the globe celebrate Independence Day with gaiety and patriotic fervour. And US President Donald Trump arrives in Alaska for the much-anticipated meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The world watches with bated breath as to what will transpire. As India celebrates its 79th Independence Day today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi led the Independence Day celebrations from the iconic Red Fort in the national capital and hoisted the national flag. Addressing the nation from the ramparts of the Red Fort, the Prime Minister laid special emphasis on self-reliance to make India a developed nation by 2047 and said that India is building a modern ecosystem across every sector to actualize this dream. Raghu Kumar Jha reports.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi unfurled the national flag on the occasion of India's 79th Independence Day at the iconic Red Fort in New Delhi on Friday. As the tricolour was hoisted, flower petals were showered at the venue by two Mi-17 helicopters of the Indian Air Force, one trooping the national flag and the other trooping a flag depicting Operation Sindoor. Addressing the nation from the ramparts of the Red Fort, Prime Minister Modi laid special emphasis on self-reliance for making India a developed nation. He said, "The bedrock of a Viksit Bharat or developed India is a self-reliant nation. And today, India is building a modern ecosystem across every sector."
आत्मनिर्भरता का नाता सिर्फ आयात और निर्यात, रुपये, पैसे, पाउंड, डॉलर यहां तक सीमित नहीं है। इतना सीमित अर्थ उसका नहीं है। आत्मनिर्भरता का नाता हमारे सामर्थ्य से जुड़ा हुआ, और जब आत्मनिर्भरता खत्म होने लगती है तो सामर्थ्य भी निरंतर क्षीण होता जाता है.
Prime Minister Modi noted that India has overcome the hurdle and have moved forward with the work on semiconductors in a mission mode. He said, by the end of this year, Made in India chips will be made available in the market. Prime Minister Modi said that the world witnessed the marvel of Made in India during Operation Sindoor. He said, had India not been self-reliant in defense equipment, India's armed forces could not have executed Operation Sindoor with such swiftness.
हमारी सेना ने वो करके दिखाया जो कई दशकों तक कभी हुआ नहीं था. सैकड़ों किलोमीटर दुश्मन की धरती पर घुस करके आतंकी इमारतों को खंडहर बना दिया.
Echoing India's prowess of indigenous technology in defense sector, Prime Minister said that India will launch mission Sudarshan Chakra to create powerful weapon system to thwart any attempt by enemies. He added that in the next 10 years, this national security shield will be expanded, strengthened and modernized.
2035 तक राष्ट्र के सभी महत्वपूर्ण स्थलों, जिनमें सामरिक के साथ साथ सिविलियन क्षेत्र भी शामिल है, जैसे अस्पताल हो, रेलवे हो, जो भी आस्था के केंद्र हो, उन्हें टेक्नोलॉजी के नए प्लेटफॉर्म द्वारा पूरी तरह सुरक्षा का कवच दिया जाएगा.
Prime Minister Modi also underscored the need to further strengthen the country's energy sector. He emphasized on achieving self-reliance in this sector, saying that the solar energy production has increased 30 times in just 11 years. Referring to nuclear energy, PM Modi said that 10 new nuclear reactors are progressing rapidly, and by 2047, the government is moving forward with the resolve to increase the nuclear energy capacity by more than 10 times. Lauding India's self-reliance in space sector, PM said that India is preparing for Gaganyaan and also working towards building the country's own space station. Drawing attention to a new challenge in the country, PM Modi said the country's demography is being altered and seeds of new crisis are being sown, which is not acceptable. He announced to launch a high-powered demography mission and said that through this mission, any imminent threat seen in India will be addressed promptly and thoughtfully in a systematic manner. Prime Minister Modi said, if a free India could be achieved through the sacrifice of millions, then through determination, hard work, self-reliance, and the mantra of Swadeshi, the dreams of a developed India could also be actualized. Raghav Kumar Jha's report for DD India.
In his Independence Day address, Prime Minister Modi laid out a bold vision for a developed and self-reliant India. From major tax reforms to empowering women at the grassroots, his address focused on the inclusive growth and citizen-first governance. Rubendra Chauhan reports.
Reaffirming India's path of reform, perform and transform, Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced a bold vision for a developed India. He emphasized building a modern, efficient and citizen-first governance system that empowers every Indian. A key highlight of his speech was the celebration of women's empowerment. PM Modi praised the impact of women's self-help groups whose products are now reaching global markets and highlighted government programs like Namo Drone Didi and Nari Shakti, both women-centric, transformative initiatives.
बढ़ती इकोनॉमी की लाभार्थी हमारी नारी है, लेकिन बढ़ती इकोनॉमी को गति देने में भी हमारी नारी का बहुत बड़ा योगदान भी. स्टार्टअप से लेकर स्पेस सेक्टर तक हमारी बेटियां छाई हुई हैं, खेल के मैदान में छाई हुई हैं, फौज में चमक रही है. आज गर्व के साथ नारी कंधे से कंधा मिला करके देश की विकास यात्रा में भागीदार हो रही है.
Prime Minister Modi also highlighted the Goods and Services Tax or GST as a major reform benefiting the nation since its rollout in 2017. Emphasizing next generation GST reforms, he outlined three key pillars: structural reforms, rate rationalization, and ease of living aimed at aiding the common man, farmers, and the middle class. The government's broader reform agenda also aims to reduce compliance costs for startups, MSMEs, and entrepreneurs, while eliminating fear of outdated legal provisions. This creates a more conducive environment for business growth, encouraging innovation and economic self reliance. The central government has submitted its proposal to the GST Council's group of ministers, focusing on tax rate rationalization, correction of inverted duty structures, resolving classification disputes, and simplifying procedures to enhance ease of doing business and drive economic growth. PM Modi announced that next generation GST reforms will be rolled out by Diwali, promising lower taxes on daily use items as a Diwali gift for the common man.
पिछले 8 साल से हमने जीएसटी का बहुत बड़ा रिफॉर्म किया। पूरे देश में टैक्स के बर्डन को कम किया, टैक्स की व्यवस्थाओं को सरल किया और 8 साल के बाद समय की मांग है कि हम एक बार उसको रिव्यू करें। हमने एक हाई पावर कमेटी को बिठा करके रिव्यू शुरू किया, राज्यों से भी विचार विमर्श किया और मेरे प्यारे देशवासियों, हम नेक्स्ट जनरेशन जीएसटी रिफॉर्म्स लेकर के आ रहे हैं।
Key measures include reducing tax slabs, lowering taxes on essential and aspirational goods, automating returns and refunds, and boosting domestic value addition. The government reaffirmed its commitment to cooperative federalism and aims to build consensus with states for implementation within the current financial year. With a clear roadmap for reforms, citizen empowerment, and inclusive growth, the Prime Minister's address marks a renewed push towards building a Viksit Bharat, a developed, self-reliant, and future-ready India. Bureau Report, DD India.
And a major highlight of the Prime Minister's address from the Red Fort was the announcement of a 100 billion rupees youth employment scheme aimed at creating jobs, formalizing the workforce and empowering young Indians. Mohammad Absarul Hassan gets us more.
On the occasion of India's 79th Independence Day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi used his 12th address from the Red Fort to chart a bold roadmap for the nation's future. His speech wasn't just ceremonial, it was a declaration of intent. While PM called for leveraging India's manufacturing capabilities in sectors including semiconductor production to nuclear energy expansion, from jet engine making to cater to global needs, the highlight of this announcement was a 100 billion rupees youth employment scheme. PM Modi made it clear, Bharat will shape its own destiny and aims to become a developed nation by 2047.
आज 15 अगस्त है। आज 15 अगस्त के ही दिन मेरे देश के युवाओं के लिए 1 लाख करोड़ रुपए की योजना हम चालू कर रहे हैं, लागू कर रहे हैं। आज से प्रधानमंत्री विकसित भारत रोजगार योजना आज ही 15 अगस्त को लागू हो रही है। ये आपके लिए बहुत खुशखबरी है।
A massive 100 billion rupees employment initiative aimed at empowering India's youth. Under this scheme, first-time employees will receive up to 15,000 rupees, helping bridge the journey from Swatantra Bharat to Samriddha Bharat. 15,000 rupees incentive to be paid in 2 installments after 6 and 12 months of employment. Applicable for employees with salaries up to 1 lakh rupees per month. Completion of a financial literacy program is mandatory for the second installment. A portion of the benefit will be parked in savings instrument to encourage long-term financial discipline. 3,000 rupees per month incentive per new employee for 2 years provided the job is sustained for at least 6 months. For the manufacturing sector, incentives will continue into the 3rd and 4th years. The ambitious scheme is expected to create 2.6 crore new jobs, with all payments routed via direct benefit transfer through the Aadhaar bridge payment system. Beyond job creation, the initiative aims at formalizing the workforce, bringing crores of young Indians under the umbrella of social security. This landmark employment push marks a decisive step toward inclusive growth and workforce formalization by empowering youth, incentivizing industries, and embedding financial discipline. The government signals its commitment to a self-reliant, future-ready India. As Bharat marches toward 2047, this initiative could well be a cornerstone of its development journey. Mohammad Absarul Hassan for DD India.
Chairman of Prasar Bharati, India's public broadcaster, Navneet Kumar Sehgal, also hoisted the national flag in the premises of Doordarshan Bhavan in New Delhi. On this occasion, the Prasar Bharati chairman appealed to the citizens of the country to work towards building an economically and socially strong nation.
हम सबका ये कर्तव्य है कि हम जो एक देश में एकता, देश में जो सद्भावना, देश के जो हमारे आज़ादी के वीर, आज़ादी के स्वतंत्रता संग्राम सेनानी थे, जिन्होंने क्या कष्ट लेकर लड़ाई लड़ी, आंदोलन किए, अपना जीवन कुर्बान किया, उन सबों को जो याद करते हुए उनके एक लक्ष्य की तरफ देश को बढ़ाने के लिए हम सब लोग जुटे हैं। और लोक सरकार के नाते हमें न केवल जन जन को सही सूचनाएं, सही खबरें पहुंचानी है, बल्कि उनमें एक देश की भावना को विकसित भारत 2047 तक बनाने के लिए, हमारी विरासत को सरोजने के लिए, समाज को एकजुट रखने के लिए, ये सभी संदेश उन तक पहुंचाकर एक समर्थ, आर्थिक रूप से और सामरिक रूप से समर्थ देश बनाने में सब नागरिकों को सहयोग देने की अपील करें।
And as India marks its 79th Independence Day, the spirit of freedom and unity echoed far beyond its borders. From bustling metros to quiet corners of the globe, the tricolour soared high, embraced by millions of Indians and friends of India alike. DD India's Rahul Upadhyay brings us more.
As India marked its 79th Independence Day on Friday, heartfelt greetings and warm wishes poured in from across the globe. World leaders, international organizations, partner countries, neighboring nations joined in the celebrations, recognizing India's journey of progress and resilience. From iconic landmarks illuminated in saffron, white and green to diplomatic messages reaffirming strong bilateral ties, India's Independence Day was embraced not just by Indians but by the global community. Neighboring countries including Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal and Pakistan joined in commemorating the occasion with enthusiasm and respect. In Colombo, 79th Independence Day of India was celebrated with the vibrant India Fest at Havelock City Mall. The event drew large crowds offering a glimpse into India's cultural richness through performances, handicrafts, cuisine and music. At the High Commission of India in Dhaka, a large number of Indian community members gathered to mark the occasion. High Commissioner Pranay Verma hoisted the national flag and read excerpts from the President's address to the nation. In Kathmandu, Indian Embassy celebrated the day with flag hoisting ceremony led by the ambassador, officially commencing the festivities. High Commission of India in Islamabad marked the 79th Independence Day of India. CDA Gitika Srivastav hoisted the tricolour and read address to the nation by Honourable President of India. These celebrations across South Asia reflect India's enduring friendships and shared spirit of independence and unity. On the occasion of 79th Independence Day of India, Ambassador Sandeep Chakravarti, Ambassador of India to Indonesia, hoisted Indian flag at India House, Jakarta, while Embassy of India in Riyadh also celebrated the day, including members of the Indian community, embassy officials, journalists and friends of India in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. While countries around the world celebrated the occasion from London to Tokyo, Wellington to Washington, Indian embassies and high commissions hosted flag hoisting ceremonies, read the President's address and welcomed dignitaries and diaspora members. These global participation reflected India's growing international presence and the strong bonds shared with nations around the world. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
World leaders and foreign missions extended warm wishes, reaffirming strong ties and shared values with New Delhi. They also hailed India's consistent rise in several sectors, especially technology and economy.
World leaders and foreign missions have extended warm wishes, reaffirming strong ties and shared values with New Delhi. They also hailed India's consistent rise in several sectors, especially technology and economy. President Vladimir Putin congratulated President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, praising India's success in socio-economic and scientific fields. He called India a respected global player and emphasized Russia's privileged strategic partnership. Greeting India, French President Emmanuel Macron recalled Prime Minister Modi's visit to France and expressed commitment to deepen Indo-French partnership through 2047 and beyond. The French embassy also shared warm wishes. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio extended Independence Day greetings to the people of India, noting the strength of India-US relationship. The US Embassy echoed the sentiment, celebrating shared achievements and future cooperation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu too congratulated Prime Minister Modi and the people of India, extending warm wishes on Independence Day and reaffirming his personal friendship with the Indian leader. Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong wished External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and Indian communities a happy Independence Day, celebrating 5 years of comprehensive strategic partnership and calling the relationship stronger than ever. Sri Lanka and Singapore extended greetings to India, reaffirming close ties and regional cooperation. Maldives' former president Ibrahim Solih called India a steadfast friend and neighbor committed to regional stability. Ukraine's foreign ministry wished India well, emphasizing peace and prosperity. Nepal's foreign minister praised India's democratic values and enduring partnership, while the Korean embassy highlighted cultural camaraderie and growing bilateral exchanges. While the greetings poured in throughout the day, messages from different parts of the globe reflected India's strong diplomatic goodwill and enduring partnerships. Bureau Report, DD India.
The tricolored color fluttered high in Madrid as India's 79th Independence Day was celebrated with patriotic fervor at the Embassy of India in Spain. The celebrations opened with the flag hoisting by the Indian ambassador to Spain, Dinesh Kumar Patnaik, and the defense attaché following the national anthem sung in unison. The cultural segment featured a Bharatanatyam performance by the Spanish artist and a soulful song, "Ae Watan," and vibrant dance medleys by children. From the flag unfurling to stirring performances, the event reflected unity, cultural pride, and enduring spirit of India. And the tricolored also soared over Paris as the Indian community marked the 79th Independence Day with pride and patriotism at the Embassy of India in Paris. Ambassador Sanjeev Singla hoisted the national flag and read the President's Independence Day address and led the gathering in singing the national anthem. Cultural performances, including a flute recital and Kathak dance, showcased India's artistic heritage. A special exhibition, Human Cost of Terrorism, underscored the global impact of violence. The event united Indians and friends of India in celebrating freedom, peace, and resilience. And still to come up on DD India NewsHour, we decode the Prime Minister's address to the nation with two special guests on the show.
One of India's newest states, one of India's oldest lands, Jharkhand is a hidden treasure house of many wonders, from quaint towns to prehistoric rock art. From thrilling adventure sports to historical heritage sites. Discover your spiritual awakening among revered ancient temples.
The month of Shravan in the monsoons is dedicated to Lord Shiv, and that is when the temple gets its maximum footfall. Johar.
Feed your body and soul with Jharkhand's incredible spread of cuisines.
बहुत tasty लगा.
Come and explore Jharkhand for an experience like never before. Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Amritpal Singh to discuss What is the key message emanating from the Prime Minister's speech at the Red Fort today? I'm joined on the show by Anil Padmanabhan. He's a senior economic journalist, and Professor Swasti Rao. She's a geopolitical expert. She works at the Jindal School of International Affairs. Thank you both for being on the show. First to you, Professor Rao. What is the central message that emanated from the Prime Minister's speech? A very, very long speech, 103 minutes. I think, if I'm not wrong, the longest ever by any Prime Minister at the Independence Day.
Yeah, exactly, Amrit. And of course, first of all, many congratulations to all of us who are celebrating the 79th Independence Day all over the world. I was watching your primer. It was excellent. And obviously, as Indians, it always gives us goosebumps, to see how long a way we have come as a modern nation state. So I think if you ask me, in my opinion, I think the biggest message that the Prime Minister gave to everybody was on self-reliance and to look within, and all the different reforms that he spoke about, which was to be had within the nation. So, for example, the GST reforms that he said that, it was a big ticket kind of an announcement, and he promised a kind of a Diwali bonanza. So let's see, he said next generation GST reforms will be unveiled around Diwali, and those are essential because they would be reducing taxes on essential goods and providing relief to many, medium and short-term enterprises, to local vendors, consumers, etc. That I think was a big ticket announcement. And I think the second one, because I so cover security and defense, was obviously the Sudarshan plan, that Sudarshan view on how to sort of develop a multi-layered and all-encompassing air defense system for India, which is to be made indigenously. So that is a vision for which I would say I'm awaiting the details as to what really are the details going to come on. And I think that is going to take a lot of my time in analyzing in coming days and time. But I think that is important. And all the wonderful gallantry awards which were announced and given to our heroes from Operation Sindoor, I think this also comes at a time when the entire nation has been taking pride in a recent operation, which was a high intensity, almost 88-hour operation. And you saw India's different forces coming together in this very joint endeavor. Okay. And I think apart from that, there are, of course, the employment schemes that he's discussed. He's also discussed, the nuclear energy capacity, and he's in that to grow, he said, tenfold by 2047. So all of those things are important. But I think if you ask me, the key flavor or what the key takeaway of his 103-minute speech, which has been his longest ever, I think that's been this reliance on indigenization in all possible sectors.
Yes. Professor, Anil Padmanabhan, do you agree that the central message, what Professor Rao is saying, was that the Prime Minister was trying to convey to the nation that self-reliance will be the bedrock of the vision of Viksit Bharat or developed India, whether self-reliance in economic sector, whether it be in energy sector, whether be it in defense and security, that the Prime Minister's stress was we need to, whether making jets in India or having semiconductor chips, etc. The idea was be self-reliant. That is how you can maintain your economic and strategic independence.
Yes, I absolutely agree with the fact that the big takeaway is the idea of self-reliance. But what fascinated me was the way the Prime Minister framed this argument. He framed it in the context, the current context of geopolitics, which is an extremely delicate situation. And India is, for no fault of its own, it finds itself at the center of this geopolitical confrontation or face-off or whatever you want to call it. So the context, he's actually linked self-reliance to the current geopolitical situation and in securing India's strategic interests. All the sectors that you mentioned, whether it's the economy or defense or missiles or nuclear energy, all of them are in very strategic sectors. So what the PM is saying is that if you need geopolitical kind of independence from the current circumstances that we are in right now, then you need to have a strong economy, which is built on the foundation of self-reliance. And then he goes on to link this to economic reforms. So, which is what fascinated me, that he linked self-reliance to the current geopolitical situation, and its success depended on India's ability to roll out reforms. So he's listed a host of them, plus he's announced this high-powered task force, which will, within a finite timeline, actually roll out reforms. Now, that is, to me, the easier part. The challenge is going to be in implementing it, because we all know that the next generation of reforms need the states to be on board. And at this point of time, many of the states are not kind of arriving at some kind of alignment with the center's objectives. But it's a political task, and I'm sure the Prime Minister has done his homework before he made this claim.
Okay. Professor Rao, when the Prime Minister speaks about saying that in the in the area of semiconductors, we need to move from lost decades to mission mode, produce made in India chips, the first made in India chip by the end of the year, or when he talks about asking the youth and the scientists to start looking at producing jets in India, what is he trying to convey here?
Now, basically, Amrit, the key here to understand is that when we say, this term that we need to become more self-reliant, and the route to self-reliant has to go through these schemes which are implementable and all of that. I think this is where we need to sort of boil down things to, because when you say, for example, self-reliance in for example, the defense ecosystem or the jet engines, I mean, as you know, there's not so much time to always get into the nitty-gritty of where situation is, but frankly today, and previously the previous expert just brought it out so beautifully, that there is a broad context here about a certain geopolitical situation being very fraught, and India having a tough time navigating a very uncertain, fluid, unpredictable geopolitical situation, whether it's the immediate neighborhood or the great power rivalry, or whichever way you want to look at it. And when in the midst of all this, the Prime Minister says that we need to be more self-reliant, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is, of course, the jet engine, and he mentioned that. Now, it is for us to sort of reflect that there was a jet engine program called the Kaveri program, which did not really progress the way it was supposed to progress, because there wasn't enough R&D over the decades. So this is not a problem of a year here or 2 years there, but this is a systemic problem. So coming back to the jet engine program, it is true that in 2025, even though India has made great strides in the indigenous fighter jet program called the LCA Tejas, that we are also proud of, and it has different variants. But if you look at the engines for those LCA Tejas, the engines are still coming from GE, which is General Electric, the F404 and the FE414. And so far, I mean, it's France most possibly, though it has not really been officially announced, but France's Safran, which is going to be helping India to sort of take the Kaveri engine, which is right now only able to have an 80 kilonewton thrust, and take it all the way to 100 to 125 kilonewton thrust, which is required for a fighter jet. But long and short is that, we cannot really be reliant in air defense, in our air defense, till the time we are reliant on the supply chain, and that can become very politicized and very political and unpredictable. So that was about that. Coming quickly to the semiconductors, I mean, as you know, that today, if there is any leverage that a lot of countries who may not be big militaries or whatever are having on the world, is through the rare earth. And through the rare earth is what you make the semiconductors and the magnets. If you carefully see why China holds the leverage it holds on the United States of America or the rest of the world, I think it is because of the monopoly it has on the rare earth production chains and supply chains, etc., and also on the magnets. And as a result, you see that the entire modern defense industry, modern electronics, EVs and solar panels and everything, is somewhere held hostage to that. So when India is talking about becoming a developed country by 2047, that is the idea of a Vikasit Bharat. Obviously, it cannot really go without really focusing and doubling down and tripling down, and I cannot really overstate that. on semiconductors. And semiconductors, is something India has reserves, but as you know, that this is not just about having reserves, it is also about putting in place a kind of extraction and production chain which has resilience and which can be done at scale, right? So it's not a one-off thing. We have to do it and then we have to scale it. And for that, India might require some certain investments, a consistent push from the government side. But that is how we are going to be changing the narrative for ourselves, because nobody else is going to come into it for us.
True.
So in my opinion, semiconductors are really pretty much at the base of that. Yeah.
Exactly. Innovation, AI, cybersecurity, etc., has to be deployed to achieve, self-reliance in that critical sector. Mr. Padmanabhan, I want to come to the energy independence part of it. The Prime Minister said that a large share of India's budget still goes towards importing petrol, diesel and gas. And then he goes on to announce the National Deep Water Exploration Mission to tap ocean resources alongside major expansions in solar, hydrogen, hydro and nuclear power. Yes, a timely announcement, but how are we on the mission mode to achieving energy independence here?
Yeah, yes, in intent maybe, but the reality is obviously doesn't match these expectations. So India has to do a lot of heavy lifting. So the Prime Minister has identified nuclear energy as one of the alternative sources of reducing India's import dependence on energy. See, if you take a step back, the Prime Minister, through all his suggestions or arguments for self-reliance, and his, appeal to young people to come up with an indigenously manufactured jet engine, as Professor Rao elucidated for us, is the argument that India is not competitive right now. So which is what repeatedly he makes these points, whether it is semiconductors, whether it is defense, and then he emphasizes that how, because of indigenization, Operation Sindoor was such a spectacular success. And he argues in the same vein that if India was import dependent, we would never have enjoyed the strategic autonomy to effect such damage to Pakistan's military establishment. So that is a very important subtext of what the Prime Minister is saying, that India is not competitive. And because it's not competitive, it does not have leverage. But it has one leverage, which two leverages I would suggest. This import dependence on energy is also a leverage on global energy markets. Secondly, India's potential, which is what everybody is betting on India. India's potential is massive. So, which is how India leverages it is also going to be an interesting experiment going forward. But largely, the Prime Minister is very clear that the country can only proceed towards the level of strategic autonomy if we pursue self-reliance, and to achieve that, you need hard-nosed economic reforms.
And, the announcement of that reform task force is the first step towards it, but a lot of work needs to go into actually initiating these reforms, because reforms often get caught in, populism, politics in India, especially when elections are around the corner. And in a country like ours, where there is some election or the other going on every 6 months, the political parties then step back. So that's the challenge. Okay, another thing that Professor Rao I want to come to, which the Prime Minister mentioned, he highlighted the dangers of demographic imbalance by infiltration and illegal migration in the border areas. He announced the launch of a high-powered demography mission to address this national security challenge. Nobody argues it's not a national security challenge. It indeed is. But there is so much layers of politics involved in it. So, how effective do you think this high-powered demography mission would be to address this, what is essentially a national security threat, but a huge, a hugely contested divisive political issue in this country?
Well, true. I mean, as the name goes, and I think as you have elucidated yourself, that this is an extremely politicized issue. But having said that, it is an extremely relevant issue. I mean, if a country, say, in principle, if a country is trying to convince its citizens that we need to be serious about our borders, I mean, that's what we see all over the world, don't we, Amrit? I mean, what do you think is the entire politics of closing the southern borders in America all about, or what do you think is the crux of the reason why far right is winning so much in Europe all about? It is all about securing borders. So I think if the Prime Minister is saying that, it is just to reiterate the fact that this is such a crucial element of national security and national stability. It is true that we as a country, especially if you look at our continental domain, particularly on the eastern side of a country, the western side, of course, we share it with Pakistan, where we have hugely manned LOC, sort of manning the border day and
Yes.
night. But the eastern side is where the problem is, because, as you know, our relations with Bangladesh itself has been in a bit of a tizzy, especially after what happened to Sheikh Hasina government, a year ago. And ever since, and then there is a problem of Myanmar, and Myanmar is also a state. And all the Rohingyas, etc., that have been coming into India. And the more unstable Myanmar is, the more exodus do we see, from there. And Myanmar remains splintered, and Myanmar remains complicated. And now, as you see, the stakeholders there are rising. There's China constantly present. There's a Russia present. There's a US present. I mean, it's a bigger mess than it ever was. And India has tried its
No, but
best.
Professor Rao, my question is, how effective is this high-powered demography mission going to be? How truthful, how much teeth would it have to address this challenge of national security that arises from the whole illegal migration part of it?
So frankly, it is only today that I heard of the government starting a high-power demography, mission. And all I have gathered from the Prime Minister's, speech is that this mission is going to be worked out in a well thought out manner. And also, an important point there is that they will, not now, we don't know the details, but they will set a time frame to deal with this crisis that he says that is looming over India. And Prime Minister said that we are moving in that direction. So as far as the mission per se is concerned, Amrit, I mean, I think it's a work in progress, and Prime Minister has chosen Independence Day to sort of tell the citizens that this is what they're trying to do. I think whenever there are more details available, I would be happy to sort of go back and see where they're coming from. But I was talking to you about, in principle, why is it that the country needs it? And any country should be talking about, having a proper manning of its borders. So I think it's just,
Very true.
great that we are seeing it now, finally. Yeah.
Very, very true. Okay, Mr. Padmanabhan, I want to come to that 1 lakh crore or 100 billion rupees PM Viksit Bharat Yojana that he's announced and or launched, where young Indians are going to receive the newly employed are going to get 15,000 rupees a month. About 3 crore young Indians are expected to benefit from it. Is the economy in a state to produce these kind of jobs, or is this what the government would want to tend towards?
The economy in this current juncture I don't think it's in a position to generate so many jobs. There are about 8 to 10 million people joining the workforce every year, and only a fraction of them are absorbed. So there is a challenge in creating the jobs. But what the PM is saying is that, like in other schemes announced in the budget, they're incentivizing firms to hire young people who are just joining the workforce. See, because again, this is a very important point the Prime Minister has flagged. The youth unemployment is a challenge worldwide, not just in India. But given India's population and what I just mentioned, the number of workers, the people joining the workforce, the magnitude of the challenge is very severe in India. So this is one form of mitigation. Eventually, as and when the economy, gathers momentum, the economic growth gets fresh legs, and more of the MSME sector begins to move with greater propensity, that's when this kind of job creation will happen. At this point, the small and medium sector are squeezed for lack of capital and also due to a lot of very difficult business processes, the biggest challenge being GST. So while you are reforming the rates, the government must actually change or reform the processes. The processes are daunting. The scrutiny is extremely severe, and MSMEs are struggling also for shortage of capital. So that's, if eventually they they're up and running, then this labor absorption is possible.
All right, let's see what he unveils or his government unveils on Diwali. I'll thank both you, Professor Swasti Rao and Anil Padmanabhan, for being on the show and lending us your insights. That's all the time we have for. Thank you very much for being on it. And moving on, President Draupadi Murmu led the nation in celebrating the 79th Independence Day on Friday at the Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi, where an at-home reception was organized to meet and greet national achievers, creators, foreign ministers, diplomats and renowned celebrities from the world of cinema. The event showcased rich cultural art and culture of India with artistic depictions from the state of Odisha, Bihar, West Bengal and Jharkhand. The President and the Prime Minister interacted with the guests present at the at-home reception as well. And speaking on the Independence Day, Union Minister Kiran Rijiju hailed the speed at which the country is progressing and talked about how the nation is on the right path to become a developed nation under the Amrit Kal. Take a listen.
सर 79th इंडिपेंडेंस डे और जिस तरीके की तैयारियां हैं, जिस तरीके का मैसेज आज प्रधानमंत्री ने दिया है, क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
देश ने एक लंबा सफर तय किया है। 79th इंडिपेंडेंस डे एक लंबा रास्ता है और सबसे मुख्य बात यह है कि जो आने वाले लगभग 21 साल जो हमारे पास है, 100 साल पूरे होने में, जब भारत आजादी का 100 साल पूरा मनाएगा तो उसमें भारत को विकसित बनाने के लिए जिस रफ्तार के साथ देश को आगे चलना है, उसका मूल मंत्र प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने आज लाल किला के प्राचीर से संदेश दिया है। हर एक सेक्टर को लेकर के दुनिया में भारत का नाम कैसे ऊंचा रहे और युवाओं के लिए, महिलाओं के लिए, किसानों के लिए, जवानों के लिए, हर एक जन, गांव, शहर, दूर दराज में रहने वाले सबके लिए संदेश दिया है कि भारत एक है, तो एक भारत श्रेष्ठ भारत। इस मूल मंत्र के साथ भारत को एक ताकतवर राष्ट्र बनने के लिए जो कदम उठाना है, उसका रूपरेखा, विजन मोदी जी ने दिया है। हम सब उत्साहित हैं और सबको मैं इस स्वतंत्रता दिवस का शुभकामनाएं देना चाहता हूं।
Still to come up on DD India NewsHour, no consensus in the Geneva talks to tackle plastic pollution. Japanese economy posts modest growth in second quarter despite painful US tariffs.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Amritpal Singh. The US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin flew to Alaska on Friday for a high-risk summit that promises a stern test of US President's promise to end the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Both leaders voiced hopes of a productive meeting, but while Trump warned he could judge it a failure after just a few minutes if Putin does not budge, the Kremlin said the two would speak for a minimum of at least 6 or 7 hours. For the Russian president, the meeting marks his first foray onto Western soil since 2022. In recent days, Russia has made deep inroads in Ukraine, taking under control of strategic locations. Unusual scenes are unfolding in Anchorage as the fleet of Russian aircraft touches down, bringing high-ranking officials, including foreign and defense ministers, along with a large press contingent. All eyes are on the city ahead of Friday's historic meeting between Putin and Donald Trump. Russia Today correspondent Igor Piskunov sends us this report.
These are quite unusual times for the Alaskan city of Anchorage, as a whole fleet of various Russian planes has arrived here carrying various top-level officials and delegations, including the Russian foreign minister and the defense minister, lots of journalists as well, and all of us are here because of the upcoming historic meeting between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. The meeting itself is scheduled to start at around 11 a.m. local time on Friday. Other sources say it could be 11:30 a.m., which would mean about 10 p.m. or 10:30 p.m. Moscow time because of the 11-hour time difference. Of course, Ukraine is expected to top the agenda. Earlier we heard from Moscow that the Americans made certain proposals which interested the Kremlin.
I've asked you to gather to provide an update on the progress of the negotiations regarding the Ukraine crisis, as well as on the bilateral talks with the Ukrainian delegation. Many of those present are already broadly aware of the situation, but I will go into more detail. That is the first point. And secondly, to outline where we stand with the current U.S. administration, which, as everyone knows well, is making, in my view, quite vigorous and sincere efforts to halt hostilities, resolve the crisis, and reach agreements that serve the interests of all parties involved in this conflict. The goal is to establish long-term conditions for peace, not only between our countries, but also in Europe and indeed the world at large, especially if we manage to reach agreements on strategic offensive arms control in the next stages.
We heard from the White House on Thursday as saying that Donald Trump is keen on finding a diplomatic solution and is going to use all the available opportunities to do so. But I think it's fair to say that besides Ukraine, the two sides have a lot to discuss. There were lots of preparations for this meeting. It's been in the making for the past few months, and both Washington and Moscow have been saying that they want it to be a special one, which would lead to concrete results regarding the relationship, a very complicated one between our two countries. Of course, we'll be covering the summit extensively, bringing you all the latest details as we get them from Alaska.
Yes, that will be a summit that would be watched very, very closely as it unfolds in a few hours from now. Moving on to some other news, no consensus was reached during talks in Geneva on the world's first legally binding treaty to tackle plastic pollution, according to delegates on Friday. More than 1,000 delegates gathered in Geneva for the sixth round of talks after a meeting of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee in South Korea late last year ended without a deal. The INC is a group established by the United Nations Environment Assembly in 2022 with the mandate to develop a legally binding global treaty to address plastic pollution. Negotiations had gone into overtime on Thursday as countries scrambled to bridge deep divisions over the extent of future curbs. Diplomats and climate advocates had warned earlier this month that efforts by the EU and small island states to cap virgin plastic production fueled by petroleum, coal and gas are threatened by opposition from petrochemical producing countries and the United States under President Donald Trump. The Japanese economy posted modest growth in the second quarter despite painful U.S. tariffs. According to a preliminary estimate, GDP in the world's number 4 economy expanded by 0.3% in the 3 months to June. The Cabinet Office data also saw a revision upwards for its reading for the previous quarter to show an expansion of 0.1%. On an annualized basis, Japan's GDP grew by 1%, beating the market forecasts of 0.4%. The new figures are a fillip for Prime Minister Ishiba, whose future has been uncertain since the disastrous upper house elections in July, which his party lost. Several Indian athletes were present at the Independence Day celebrations at the Red Fort. They said that Prime Minister Narendra Modi's address inspired and motivated them. Take a look.
Prime Minister Sir said that independence is very much necessary for making our country Bharat a developed nation. And I feel that sport can be also a great medium in this journey to make our India or to make our country a developed country.
I am very much proud to be the part of this Independence Day celebrations at Red Fort, Delhi. I am very much thanks to PM Modi sir to inviting me here. And today Modi sir speech is very inspirational and it's a language speech. It's all about the sports and PM Vikasit Bharat Rozgar Yojana.
Today I feel very privileged and very happy to hear as a special invitee, and I am expressing my deep gratitude to our Honorable Prime Minister sir. Our Honorable Prime Minister sir addressed every aspect of the nation's development. The new sports policy will give support to especially to the youth to become the champions of the nations.
I am very glad and privileged to be invited as a special invitee for this Independence Day celebration, and I am very thankful to our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji. On this occasion of Independence Day, our Honorable Prime Minister had one of the longest speech of 103 minutes, and he has covered all the aspects of the society. He has more emphasized on the scheme which he has launched, Vikasit Bharat Rozgar Yojana, which will definitely empower the youth and the job opportunities for them.
Modi ji speech, it's very inspiring to youth and everyone. He's 1.5 to 2 hours. He's standing and explain about the future of India and how we will live, how we will gain, how to improve the society, what is the awareness, everything. Really we are inspiring.
That's it in this edition of DD India NewsHour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates on Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on. Thank you for watching DD India NewsHour. Bye-bye.